Hey Axis and Allies players, a good captain here, and welcome to Russia's turn 4 and Germany's turn 4 in this game of Axis and Allies 1914, out of box, no bid, that I'm playing against a human opponent. So we'll review the Russians' turn and take the German turn. The Russians bought 7 infantry and saved 1 production unit. Moved a blocker to Tatarstan. And then, retrograded into Moscow, leaving the blockers in Livonia and Belarus. Then placing all 7 in Moscow, of course. Russians collect 19 but end with 20. So, yeah, this is kind of what I was thinking would happen. Going into Poland just isn't worth it, given the fact that you have these 2 sizable armies adjacent to Moscow. So, yeah, falls back Moscow. Let's do the current game, okay, and go into the purchases for Germany, excuse me. Okay, and I decided 2 fighters, 1 artillery, 1 armor. I'm probably going to produce an armor a turn as Germany. And I was going to do 7 infantry, but then I decided to do some game theory and buy a transport. And this isn't just for fun. I actually have a I'm going to try to get the most out of this transport that I can. I have plans for it. But yeah, I was just checking my records, and I have now completed 8 games of Axis and Allies 1914, and I have 4 ongoing. So, including the games completed and the games I'm currently playing, I'm up to, this is 12 games completed or being played, so I'm not yet halfway to my stated goal of stacking 30 before I really even think of cutting videos. Sometimes it might be more. With Anniversary, I ended up going to about 40 before I cut any videos. So we're still in the infancy of developing this game, and part of what I like to do isn't just math and statistics and trying to find the best way to do things. It's also experimenting with some game theory, and then by that I mean, um, just trying it every now and then, incorporating an out-of-the-box idea. So I want to see what I've never done this before, never seen it done yet as the CP. I want to see what this does, and I'll go over what I'm thinking about that purchase and how I'm going to use it uh, to what I think it might be best effect. And of the 8 games that I've completed, I've let's see, I've technically lost 4 as the CP, 1, 2 as the CP, and 1, 2 as the only 2 that I played as the Entente. And yeah, of course, I just out of the gate, I think I'm playing the veteran. If you don't know him, he's a Axis and Allies YouTuber. And he put it best by saying that the Entente can be played inefficiently and still uh, capture the wins fairly. It seems fairly easily. So yeah, I agree that after playing those 2 games as the Entente, it does definitely seem that way. So, but we're not. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't. I'm not. I've just barely started in terms of kind of wrapping my head around what's going on over here in the East Front in this game in general. But there is a lot to unravel, and I'm having a great time in this game just uncovering all these weird little nuances and this ties into this transport build because I'll demonstrate one thing the Russian player can do. There's a certain rule and a lack of a certain phase that creates this weird situation that might be something interesting to be used as the CP. Anyway, I'll get into that in a moment. But all right, let's move. These videos are getting way too talky, so sorry about that. But okay, German combat move. We're going to take everything and shove it into Belarus, except for 2 infantry out of Poland. So the concept here, let me make sure this makes sense. I want 45 pieces in Belarus. 32 plus 9 is 41, plus 5, yeah, 46, and we do swaps in Belarus. I'm assuming, always assume a hit on the part of the defenders, so that'll be 45 pieces. And why am I doing that? Well, that's what I'm expecting to have in the Ukraine too. I want the option to hold. I have the option of dogpiling both armies into Belarus, but with I've already checked the stats. 45 pieces is about 3 infantries in favor of the defender. In other words, if the Russian army did a full-on attack with his ground units and left his air units back, because we have air superiority, it would be almost crazy to send those 3 against these 5. And we'll have something similar over here when we do this with the Austro-Hungarians in Ukraine. But we can split the army fairly safely now. He can't come out in any degree of force that would give him a benefit in combat unless he pulls everyone out, which would expose his capital. So I don't think he'll do this, and 45 pieces is what I'm comfortable with. So this gives me, again, operational flexibility. I can stack Germany and Austria-Hungary in Belarus before Russia's next turn, or I can leave them split and both will be viable options. This gives me some operational flexibility is useful against the UK. So if the UK brought everybody into Sevastopol, that would probably, or might, influence what I want to do on the East Front. Not that he will do it, but again, it's all about operational flexibility. So the reason I put 2 in Livonia is so this is how I'm feeling right now. I'm becoming more convinced that the CP, if you're going to do a kill Russia first strat, I've done a kill Italy first strat. It was an abysmal failure. Despite in that game, I took out everything in Venice on the first round on accident, and it still just was so unimpressive that I went back to KRF right away. But one of the things I'm trying to do is take away Russian IPCs, or at least make it difficult for them to get IPCs. And this way, no matter what, even if I miss both my dice and he hits, he still has to send assets into Livonia, take them out of the capital to get the IPCs back. And then whatever he sends in there is going to be, adjacent to the balance of the German army. So it's very much a dead zone. I don't want to give Russia those 2 IPCs. So this pretty much takes care of, almost forgot this fellow here. This pretty much takes care of Germany in the, wait, now I just noticed that infantry can come here. Yeah, there's almost no reason not to. You always want to leave a blocker behind. Yeah, that's more efficient. So now I can, if I need to displace out of this territory, I can leave the German as a blocker. The only thing it might not do is it relieves a little bit of dead zone pressure on Livonia, but we don't really care about that. So yeah, okay. I didn't have that in my original planning. Okay, over here on the west front. Oh, sorry, let's do Africa. I already kind of discussed this in a previous video, but I don't like doing this, but I think we have to. I want to keep these guys moving and shooting and battles going on down here as long as I can, and draw off as many assets as I can, no matter what they are. At this point, this looks like the best move. Staying put means that 6 pieces hit me as the French, and then the British can come in and mop up. So seems to be less lethal, and good for IPCs if we move Portuguese East Africa. If we avoid the infantry swap, then we're not in a terrible fighting position. So There we go. This, pretty obvious. This has to be a smash. Again, as stated in a previous video, we are worried, or I'm expecting the French to move Switzerland this turn. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't combine Burgundy and Lorraine and push Switzerland. It's going to cause me the most problems is the CP, so I fully expect that result. So we just rock forward like so. So that's the situation on the west front. Okay. Over here, and I'm going to pull up my template. Yeah, okay. I want to move 3 infantry and an artillery out of Berlin and push Kiel. One, we need more troops. We can't really ignore the west front too much longer now. The French are getting bigger and bigger, and I think they have a superior move coming up. So send some assets here. These assets push Silesia. Yeah, 4-2, and then the fighters. Yeah, 4-2-2. And there's a reason. All this is got a reason behind it. I'm also gonna move my navy here, and my initial goal for the my initial goal for naval aspirations, this is to explain my transport build, was to force the Brits to build something, anything, and boy did they. I'm happy with that. That's IPCs that are not going to be IPCs in the water. To me are sunk IPCs. They open up the highway for you in terms of troop movement as the Entente, but they do not gain you IPCs except by the aforementioned. So since there's an overwhelming superiority of Entente ships, generally speaking, finding something useful to do for the CP Navy can be quite difficult. Covering Kiel makes sense, but I don't know. It can be fairly easily warded off from the landward side just by the fact that reinforcements can be sent down this way into France, and so they can sort of casually protect Kiel on their way to the front. And I'm going to try putting a transport here, and I'll get into the transport build more in the place units phase. For now, we are going to roll. Yeah. Yep, so we got 1, 2, 3, and 1 down in Africa. 4 battles. And it always makes me nervous to snap the done button, but here we go. So the first one I'll do is Livonia, and it's essentially, I think there's a 51% chance of getting a hit off of 2-2 attackers, and he's got, of course, a 50% chance of hitting us back. So it's a 50-50, and I plan for the worst and hope for the best. So we missed, and he missed as well. Okay, so not great, not terrible. Belarus, this is a smash, and he picks up we do the swaps, but that was planned for. Alsace, this is actually pretty important. I hope he doesn't get more than 2 hits. 2 hits, all right. And then Portuguese. This is actually a big deal. He swapped. All right, so this turn went more towards the let's see, he rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dice and scored 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. So yeah, he was +1, but I think on previous turns I was shooting up, so it's probably balancing out. And then we place our units. Of course, they all have to go Germany except for this transport. And now I will discuss very briefly what the hell I was thinking here. Okay, I'm looking at Finland as a priority. If this transport makes it into the sea zone next turn and survives, well, of course I'm pushing my fleet in here too. And yes, I'll take casualties from the mines. Yes, the battleship will cause more casualties, but hopefully we knock it down in 1 round of combat and we don't lose more than 1 or 2 boats maximum. In exchange, if the transport survives, we now have a permanent land highway from Poland to Finland. In other words, this is a very reliably safe territory with troops, so long as we're fighting the Russians, constantly coming in here and being shipped to Finland, or have the option of being shipped to Finland. And this is good because even if they go into revolution, having Finland for the rest of the game and keeping it in the game instead of having it burned down by the revolution is very important. IPCs being very important. The resources, this is artificial, it's actually minus 18 because at least 18 and maybe a few more IPCs because the USA player has been saving, but it's around 125, 126 to 96. So they've got, what is that, 20, no, 30, almost a 30-point IPC lead on us at this point. So we do need to eat more of Russia's lunch to have a chance at balancing the IPCs, and that's key, right? That is something we definitely should try to do as Germany, or as in any game of Axis and Allies, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. You're playing an IPC game, and the only version of the Axis and Allies canon series games that has what I feel to be the correct victory condition is the original classic has the economic victory. Of course, if one side controls 57% of the global economy, you're the winner. Just that's the end of it. It's hard to come back from that kind of a situation in terms of raw production, and none of the other games that followed on from that helped the player appreciate what was going on with regards to IPCs being pulled off the board. So that's a huge piece of the puzzle. The other big piece is, of course, the TUV. The TUV is less of a panicky situation to me. With so many IPCs of Entente IPCs in the ocean, in the water, you can actually minus out the value of the CP Navy, minus out the value of the Entente Navy, and you get a much more competitive total unit value of ground units. Even counting the Americans, it looks good. It looks okay. It looks competitive. So at least that's how I feel now. Of course, I leave my mind open to being changed. But it's too bad that Livonia didn't get capped here, because if we had, this would have been a polite check to the Russian player, as in your revolution is showing, right? You capture 3 territories adjacent. The Russian player then has the option. This optional rule isn't just a one-way ticket or one-way decision or one-way option for the CP. I think it's a misconception that it would be that. The Entente has a huge say in what the hell or how that rule plays out. In other words, if the Germans had captured Livonia in this situation, the Russians would be able to decide if they want to accept, they could not attack and offer terms. They could offer the Central Powers, okay, yeah, I'll take this. And why would they do that? Because it blows up Finland, Karelia, Moscow, Tatarstan, Sevastopol, and Kazakhstan's IPCs. You scorch earth the value of Russia when you are Russia and offer, and of course this is contingent on the prediction that the CP accept it. You do not have to accept it as the Central Powers. So if I had, though, I probably would accept it in this situation, because what the CP gets out of it, so the Russians get, or the Entente get, the ability to burn down all this IPC and not let the Germans have, or the CP approach equality in terms of the total unit value of the board, or the total economy of the board. But the CP would want to do this because the Russian army departs the field. They just get eliminated. Also, Kazakhstan and Sevastopol are no longer in play. The British cannot move through there. So this forces that axis of advance straight through through this area of the board, to get to Constantinople, or to get into the CP rear areas. They have to go this direction, which is much easier to manage in terms of the CP just sending troops down there to help the Ottomans try to spar off the British. So, you know, I don't know who benefits more from that, but I think the answer might be that it's it's a very nuanced optional rule. I think the CP can't play to one side or the other. You have to be open to both. You have to be able to perceive when one is better for your side than the other, um, because that offer is made only once in the game. So if the Russians offer it and the CP say no, then it's on. You know, you can forget that rule for the rest of the game. So one last thing before I close this video. It this is I mentioned this earlier in this video. There's a gamey little trick that is becoming more and more apparent to me in this game that makes this very different from other Axis and Allies games. And that is that naval units do not have to, you can move naval units into a zone with enemy ships and you do not have to attack them. Now, why on earth would anybody do this? Because it creates a hostile sea zone and therefore transports cannot load. So I'll just, by example, demonstrate this. The Russians will have the option of moving this battleship into this sea zone with the German Navy, and regardless of whether they get hit by the mines or not, it creates a hostile sea zone. And since there is no non-combat move, and all movement is done at the same time, I will not be able to load this transport because of the existence of the Russian battleship in the sea zone. Even if I clear it off in combat, I cannot move after combat is complete. I place units and pass the turn, right? Because all movement is simultaneous in this game. So the Russian battleship comes down, declares he's not going to fight my navy, creates a hostile sea zone. The German transport is frozen for a turn. That that is something that I am working on in other games and testing that viability, but it is not obvious to a regular Axis and Allies player that that is a thing you can do. This used to be called substalling back in Europe, the original Europe and original Pacific. Submarines could create hostile sea zones, and so you could float them into enemy sea zones, not do combat, just as I described. It would occur that way. Enemy transports would not be able to load, etc., and you have these problems because of that. But you can essentially, submarines don't do that in this game. They don't create hostile sea zones at all, but surface units do. So he could spike my transport next turn if he wanted to. I don't think he will. I don't, unless he's watching these videos. I doubt it. That option is not in the front of the minds of most players playing this game, and I think I'll wager and say that. So what I'll do on my turn is next turn push up here. I'll probably even load an infantry in this and take the 1 in 6 chance that he gets blown up so that I can grab Finland. And I don't think the Russians are going to send much up there because they've got a lot going on down here protecting their capital. So even if the Russian Revolution happens, you know, I'll have Finland. So that's it. Thanks for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.